More than 250 experts in the traffic signals industry joined together in person to hear a range of papers here in Nottingham. These recordings are brought to you by AGD Systems, Colas, SRL Traffic Systems, Smart Video and Sensing, Vivacity and Unex Traffic.
Thank you. And well, good afternoon everyone now, as it is. I'm going to take you to lunch with hopefully something you'll find interesting. It's certainly been an interesting project to find out and be involved in. And what it is, it's an ITS project, but it's not on a motorway, it's not on a city, it's in a very, very rural area, which presents its own challenges, which I'll go into some of those. But just because it's in a rural area, it's just as impactful and as important to the people who live, work and visit that area as some of the grander schemes that we hear about and know about in the big cities and highways of the land. So, Wensleydale, it's in North Yorkshire. It's actually the Pennines of the North Yorkshire, and it's in the National Park. So it's famed for its scenery, and that's one of the reasons it attracts a lot of visitors. It has a breed of sheep named after it, so it's a very agricultural area, as you can quite imagine. And it's home to other, so I'll say, agro-industries like racehorsing. There's a very important racehorsing centre in Wensleydale itself. That obviously generates traffic. And it's home to Aysgarth Falls, which is one of the most visited scenic attractions in the area. Wensleydale, or the North Yorkshire Yorkshire Dales National Park attracts around 4.7 million visitors per year. That's the latest data I could get from 2019. So you get a lot of visitors to the area on holiday. But interestingly, the stats suggest that 80% of those visitors are actually day trippers. So you get a lot of visitors in and out of the Dale each day, which obviously causes potential for traffic problems. Why do they visit? Well, it's home to some cracking cheese, as they say. And the creamery in Hawes, where it's produced, is not only a tourist attraction, it is a working factory. So it has deliveries of milk every day. Employees have to get there. And then the product is shipped out. A lot of people might be too young to recognise this picture. This is the original TV series adaptation of All Creatures Great and Small. But that was set in Wensleydale. A lot of the filming was in Wensleydale. And people remember that, and a new series was made or screened last year, I believe, which I didn't watch because I've seen the original. But people associate those imageries, and they think this is a great place to go and visit. So again, it leads to traffic. And it also has a railway line. It is an operational railway line, but it's pretty much a tourist railway line, so it doesn't contribute much to modal shift. So, as you can probably guess by the rolling stock and traction there. So, I'm going to have to try and do some pointing here and talk at the same time. This is the valley of the River Ure. It's called Wensleydale because it's got the village of Wensley in it, although Swaledale, Nidderdale, and some of the others, they're all named after the rivers that flow through them. So Wensleydale's the oddity, it's the River Ure. And as you can see from this image, because of the topography of it and the nature of the landscape, it's prone to flooding. And this, as you can imagine with climate change and the impacts with more intense periods of rainfall, is a problem we're very aware of and is likely to become worse over the next coming decades. So what you see here are, that top image there is actually Aysgarth Falls again. That's what it looks like in flood. And a couple of images from a recent flood event, which was actually in November 2020, so not that long ago. And this was the remnants of Hurricane Ida, which hit and caused torrential rain in the area. And actually, the river level recorders recorded the highest ever river level in history, as it were. So there was flooding. So what do they do about it now? Well, they do know the river floods. It's in an area, and part of the A684, the main road through Wensleydale, leads up, connects to Northallerton through the Yorkshire Dales up to Hawes and then across, actually to the other side, the Pennines to Lancashire. it's built on the floodplain, so they know there's a flooding issue, and their system up till now for warning people of that is a local will get on the phone to the county council. You might get through if it's office hours, and then somebody might be able to get out in their van and flip over a plate sign. So that's basically it. That's the current system they have. As you can see, it's prone to being subject to weather conditions, obviously, and the problem being reported at the right time of day when there's someone there to take the call. So what they want to do is replace that with an automated system. And they finally got some funding to go ahead with this project, and SWARCO, luckily, was selected because of the quality of our proposed solution to work with North Yorkshire County Council and WPS to deliver this solution. So, the challenges, it's rural, as I've described. There's a lack of mains power to a lot of the locations. There's not much in the way of communications infrastructure. Now, our solution that we've worked on gets around some of those issues. One of the big developments we've been working on almost continuously is reducing the power consumption of our equipment when it's installed. So those of you who have seen, and there's plenty of examples around here, thanks to SRL bringing a lot of our kit along, we have very low power consumption LEDs, which make the signs run at really low power. But also what you can't see is the fact that the control technology, the controller boards, the PCBs, the gubbins behind that makes it all work, their power consumption is coming down as well. So we're now in a position where we can start deploying off-grid solutions, which is good because you can put it in places otherwise you wouldn't be able to, and it ticks that big carbon reduction box that everyone's interested in. Other challenges there, comms I mentioned. We had to do some comms surveys, and we've been helped out there by going to our trusted partner there, which is, I'm looking around for Peter Simper Mobius. I saw him earlier, but anyway, we'll talk to him later about that. And roadside, the space is restricted. They're not wide roads, they're not wide verges, there's trees, there's great big stone walls, that kind of thing. And it's a national park, so you have to be kind of sympathetic to the visual appearance and the impact it's going to have on the environment and what it looks like. Make sure it doesn't degrade the environment visually as much as you possibly can. So the solution. We've got these flood detection cabinets. This is actually the root of the flood detection cabinet. So this is mounted at the roadside, and this houses the, well, I'll show you in a minute. There we go. What's inside there? There's a bit of equipment on the left. You see a low voltage disconnect and a fuel cell at the bottom and a battery. So these are battery powered where we can't connect to mains power, which is pretty much everywhere for the flood detection cabinets. And we have a fuel cell for generation. So when the battery level reaches a low level, the fuel cell kicks in, charges it up, and you can see the control device there as well. So that sits in a cabinet that will actually sit on top of the green cabinet there, which sits at the roadside. And how it works, we have a chamber which is dug into the roadside. This is the picture at the bottom here. And the other pictures of it are of it in situ. That chamber, when it reaches flood condition, there's a lot of water around it, that essentially fills with water. And there's pea gravel around it to ensure it does so. And inside that is a pressure sensor. Now the pressure sensor detects the pressure of the head of water above the sensor. And it's calibrated so that it will react to a level of water that's equivalent, a pressure which is equivalent to the level of water required to flood the road at that location. So some fairly complex surveying and calibration are required to get that right. It's also complicated to say. And this pressure sensor, it's an analog sensor, and it sends a message to the controller in the flood control cabinet, which then sends a message to the control system to set the warning signs. And the warning sign cabinets, again, very similar sort of layout, a bit bigger. You've got more battery power in there. Some of these are able to be connected to mains, but you have the fuel cell solution and the batteries. And on this one, you can see there's, well, you can't see it because it's hidden behind the pillar of the cabinet itself, the frame. But a solar charge regulator, because some of these are also solar powered. So we have solar power and we have fuel cell as backup for the batteries. Now, the battery life and the fuel cell life is expected to last between 12 and 24 months in typical service. So it's not going to require too much in the way of maintenance visits, etc. And it provides that ability to get off-grid. Now, the signs itself, they're quite small compared to some of the variable message signs you'll see on motorways and town centres, but big enough to display that flood and road closed message with flashing hazards. There's radar detection built into them. This is a solution we came up with so that there's an option for them to only be activated when there's vehicles approaching them. So it's another potential solution to extend the battery life of some of these installations to make sure that they are operable when they need to be operable. And they have a full matrix panel, so they're not like a vehicle activated sign, they are a full matrix panel, so you have the option then to be able to change the messages and show other messages. This one here, for example, because it's sited, this is actually in the village of Aysgarth, because it's sited just before a junction, we probably need to think about, or North Yorkshire County Council need to think about that message saying A684 closed rather than just road closed. The locations, right, see if I can get the pointy thing to work again. So this is east to west running down the valley, essentially between Bainbridge here and Wensley, which is hidden under that D4, S6 area. So apologies to everyone on that side of the room who can't see this, I've only got one pointer. So there's two major areas of flooding. There we go. So down near the village of Leyburn, actually just where the bridge crosses the river at Wensley, that's a really area that's really prone to flooding. And that is essentially, there's a cabinet there and two signs at location S5 and S6, which will warn approaching motorists of flood in that area. You can just make out on this, you can just make it out if the pointer would work. Anyway, there is a diversion road, but it is not a very good road. It is, it's not suitable for certain types of traffic that runs to the north of the river through Redmire and then through Askrigg up to Bainbridge. So there is an option for a diversion route there, but it's not recommended. And then you have this other flood area between Aysgarth and Bainbridge. And you can see this is now dotted with cabinets and signs to warn of that area. And that's a picture there of one of the vehicles that got through during the flood in 2020. The Spar lorry managed to get through, but not much else. But you can see the sort of water levels on the road there. So this has prompted some discussion around where the detection points should be and where the messages should be. On this particular slide, you can see I'm talking about the cabinet D5. I think I've broken the battery on this. Sorry. So the D5 location is actually on the side road. It's actually a country lane, which connects the A684 to that diversion route I was telling you about. But it is actually a really small country lane. But it was only when we got out there and did the site surveys that because there's no CCTV out there, there's no data, there's no detection, that kind of thing. It's only when you go out and engage with the locals that you find out where the problems really are and how to solve them. And this lane here can provide a diversion route. But as you can see, this is a view there. It's a vegetation. The vegetation there tells you that's an area that floods. So we put in a cabinet and a flood detection chamber there, and that will then operate this sign on that mast, which is to be installed in that village of Wharton there. And that's visible from the junction where you turn off the A684. So that will stop people going down there and getting stuck in the flood when they try to take the diversion route. So a little bit, just I told you earlier that we have full matrix panels on those variable message signs. So connect to a hosted system with management control. We could actually, or North Yorkshire County Council could use those for other purposes. Some example messages that fit on there. One, cycle event, the area is known for attracting a lot of cyclists. Or just a warning sign if there's a hazard or an accident on the road that they want to set alternative messages for. So we're bringing a lot of flexibility to the solution as well, which they can take forward and use in the future. And that's it. So the key takeaways there, I've managed not to hit the red light. The key takeaways there really are These solutions are applicable in other locations other than big cities. We have low power solutions so they can be installed in off-grid locations. And we have the flexibility to design in flexibility for the future. That's about it. Any questions, anyone?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Well, straight away, I think we've got a question. If we could get a microphone up there, please.
Hi everybody, Tim Ray from Unix, a Siemens company. Great presentation, I enjoyed that, thank you very much. Just one question, and I was kind of thinking, you know, I do spend a bit of time up there and it's a beautiful place. I head up there first thing on Sunday morning, it's raining a little bit, it starts to rain an awful lot more, my car's parked there, and by tea time when I go back to it, it's floating. Is there any opportunity for a bit more advanced warning to be made available to these signs, perhaps connected to weather systems, etc.?
Well, potentially, as I said earlier, they can be calibrated so that you could set it so you get a warning before the road is actually flooded. So that's something we will learn over time once the system's deployed. So that calibration aspect could come into that. As to connecting to weather systems, that's because the hosted system that's managing the signs is going to be open to data from other sources and interfaces. That's certainly a possibility. There aren't actually that many river recorders in the area. There's only one I know of in Upper Wensleydale. So but that data from that site could be used. It is a potential going forward, yes.
Yeah, and perhaps a link to some sort of UTMC system that would give you a little bit more advanced warning. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's exactly where it lies. That's the potential that's open to it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions out there? Well, I just on a very, very practical point of view, how do you stop the cabinets from flooding? And do you work, because presumably they are protected, are you working to protect them from a certain year event or a certain level?
The cabinets, as I tried to describe, the cabinets are mounted on a route. So firstly, they are set back from the area which is most prone to flooding. And then we have a route, so it's basically an empty cabinet, a stand, as it were, a plinth that they'll sit on, which can be used to house other stuff if you wish to. The wiring will go through there. But they're going to be about that far above the road surface, so it will take a really big flood to impact those. So we've done the best to accommodate that possibility, yes.
Thank you very much.
Everyone wants a lunch?
Are there any other questions? Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.